Ian Mansfield, we're happy to having you here with us today. We're speaking about your book, Stepping into a Minefield, a life dedicated to mine action. Your life was truly one of dedication to mine action. How many years have you spent doing this job?
Well, I've actually spent 25 years now working in the field of mine action. I worked full-time for the UN for about 12 years. I worked at the Geneva International Centre for Humanitarian Demining for 9 years, and then I semi-retired, and for the last 4 years I've been working as a consultant.
You started your career off in the Australian Army. You rose to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, and then one day you came across a job opening. They were looking for an engineer officer to advise the landmine clearance program in Afghanistan. And your first reaction was, who on earth would pack up their family to go and live in Pakistan and work in war-torn Afghanistan? That's a quote from your book.
Yeah.
Well, you did.
I did. Yes, I joined the Australian Army straight from school. I went to our officer training academy in the early 1970s. Any opportunity to get out and do something a bit different then was attractive. So we discussed it and decided that I would apply for it, and I was successful, and so I was appointed the commanding officer of this team of Australian Army engineers that went to train Afghan refugees how to clear landmines.
And the assignment was actually meant to be a one-year assignment, and you ended up not coming back home to Australia for over 20 years after that.
That's correct.
So had you known at that time that you wouldn't come home for such a long time, would you have taken the same decision?
It's hard to say. You know, I was in the military. We were used to moving regularly. So I don't know. I didn't expect to stay away that long, but as I got more and more involved with this work, the more fulfilling and satisfying it was, and so I was quite happy to continue on doing it.
In fact, you got more and more involved, as you just said. After Afghanistan, you moved on to Laos, and after Laos, you went to Bosnia. What were your greatest challenges in those war-torn countries?
I think everyone had different challenges. Afghanistan, the Soviet Union had just withdrawn. There was no recognised government. The different mujahideen groups were fighting each other. So the security and the physical difficulties of getting around the country and deploying demining teams, finding out where the mines were, was the big challenge. And it was interesting because we were adapting military techniques and procedures to civilian humanitarian ones. Laos was quite a different situation. There was a stable government. It was a legacy type program 20 years ago from the Vietnam War period, and I was just there as an advisor. But my main challenges there were working with the government to set up this program and to convince them that this was the way to go. And then Bosnia, it was only 1 year after the war had ended, and as people, it was a hard country, hard people, and the saying was that the shooting had stopped, but the war hadn't ended, and there was still animosity between the three different ethnic groups. But it worked quite successful. Demining proved to be successful as a peace-building measure, and we would have technical meetings with people from all sides, just discussing technical issues, and so the demining program was successful in that sense of bringing people together. But it was still quite raw, the feelings, because the war was just finished.
You were just mentioning before, you've seen a series of horrific things, obviously, during your 20 years in mine action. At some point in the book you say that there can be light where darkness lies, and actually that unique way of yours of telling the story but with a certain sense of humour. We're always seeing the good side of things. Is that an attitude of yours, that sense of humour, that has helped you through those years?
It is. Clearing landmines is a dangerous, serious business, and there's no question about it, and the consequences of any accident or mistake are horrific. Working with the Afghans in particular was fabulous. I found the Afghans were wonderful people, and the friendships and their sense of humour and so on. I often tell a story. We used to take donors or visitors to see Afghan demining teams working, and this one Afghan would be brought forward, and he spoke good English, so he explained that he stood on a mine and lost his leg. So he'd roll up his trouser leg and show his prosthetic, and all the donors would say, "Oh, you're a very brave man, you've lost your leg, yet you're back here working." And he says, no. He says, "Every day we go to work, my friends here are risking 2 legs, and me, I'm only risking 1 leg." I thought, what a beautiful sentiment, and it was just typified the Afghan sort of nature and culture, that they could see humour even in losing your leg and that type of thing. So wherever you work with people, and you go through the whole range of human emotions. You know? And I'm an optimist at heart. You know, I think that we are succeeding in clearing landmines. We're succeeding in stopping the new use, and so it's a thing to be positive about.
We looked back 20 years, looking forward 20 years. How will mine action look then, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I hope mine action has gone away, in a sense, because it's been an interesting sector, because the anti-personnel mine ban convention was extremely successful. So I think that the trends are all positive. I think we need to finish the job. There are certainly some countries where it's a big job still, Afghanistan, Cambodia, Angola. But I think, you know, landmines in particular, the new use is pretty well stopped. So I think in 20 years' time, hopefully landmines are relegated to history and a thing of the past. There'll always be unexploded ordnance. You know, in Europe they're finding ordnance from World War I, from World War II. So as long as a country has some response capability, train people that if a civilian finds something, they can ring somebody up to come and deal with it, that they're not forced to deal with it themselves.
In fact, you, when you were working here in Geneva with us at the Geneva International Centre for Humanitarian Demining for almost a decade, you in fact had a big influence on such procedures and how to hand it over to national authorities and national entities so that they could handle also the long-term residual contamination. So what are your best memories from Geneva, from your time at the GICHD?
The mine action sector's gone through a number of phases. I guess the early 10 years was very technical, you know, agreeing on techniques for prodding and detecting and what type of equipment to use, and was very technically focused. And then it became more about, you know, it's not just a standalone activity, it should support development, it should support humanitarian objectives and human security and these type of things. So I think when I was at the Geneva Centre, we were in the second phase of standardising the sector. So every year there seemed to be some new issue that needed some studies, and that was the strength of the centre, that they have good staff, expertise, that they have the time to go and do the research, collect the evidence, and then draw conclusions out, and that helped people in the field. So I think just professionalising the sector and providing assistance to the field programs was the most satisfying part about working here at the centre.
That was basically your last career step, your time in Geneva. After that you retired, but without actually retiring. And as your book, as the title of your book says, a life dedicated to landmine clearance, you actually still dedicate at least part of your time and your life to mine action. And in fact, we are here in Geneva this week for the 19th meeting of Mine Action National Programme Directors and UN Advisors. And you told me previously that you think that you are the only one person who has attended all 19 meetings, and that you would stop after 20. Can you stop? Can you actually stop living for mine action?
Who knows? I left the centre in 2011. I've been here 9 years. That's long enough in any one job. It's time for fresh ideas and fresh enthusiasm. And went home for personal reasons. We have kids and grandkids and wanted to spend more time with them. But after a while, you know, this sector, there are a lot of people. Once you get into the mine action sector, it gets in your heart. You know, it's good, meaningful work. You're making a difference. And so I started then to do a bit of consulting work just to keep in touch. So I enjoy coming to this meeting, and yes, I'm the only person that's attended all 19. So my goal is to attend the 20th, and then, as I say, maybe it's time then to give it away.
So we're looking forward to seeing you next year again for the 20th edition of this meeting. Thank you very much, Ian, for this interview, and all the best.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.